Hi. Good morning from beautiful, sunny Hood River, Oregon, my new homestead. It is so lovely to see all of you on here. So I'll just jump in. I want to talk about some things today for our weekly Talks on Tuesday session that I haven't shared yet in this group. I've been absent the last few weeks, just moving and all of the hubbub of life. And I was thinking about what do I really want to share with you today? And the thing that just predominantly was coming to mind was sharing this story about my journey around spirituality and rediscovering my soul, and hoping that that can help illuminate some things that maybe you're going through, some tips about how to connect with our innate wisdom, and a little confession that I have also shied away from sharing, but just gonna let it all out today. So let me know if you're watching live or in the replay. Let me know that you're here. The new Facebook Live format lets me know people are watching, but doesn't tell me who. So share your name. Let me know where you're at. So the short synopsis of my journey is that I grew up in a very religious Christian household, and I went to church regularly. When I was 13, we moved from California to Oregon, and it was a really painful time to move, as you can imagine. And I didn't have any friends when I moved, and I felt really lonely and isolated. And so I found church, and there was a community of people who accepted me, and I had friends, and it felt so loving and warm, and I just invested myself fully in it. And I mentored, junior high kids when I was in high school, and I went on mission trips, and I did like the whole thing, the whole shebang, and I loved it. And it was great for a while, but I did have some questions, some pretty big questions that never were able to be answered by the church. Predominantly, if the main message of Christianity is that if you believe in Christianity and you believe in Christ, that's how you go to heaven. Otherwise, sorry. And I always thought, well, how come me? Like, how come I'm so lucky, having to been born in this country where that's where everyone believes that now we get to go to heaven, but other parts of the world where people just happen to be born there, they don't get to go to heaven? Like, that just never sat with me and was never to be able to be explained to me. So I had these questions sticking in my craw. And then there was an incident that happened with my brother and some of the leadership team that wasn't okay in my mind, and I went to bat for him, and on like a bunch of ethical standards. And I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty here because that's not the nitty gritty isn't my story to share. But what happened, what felt like happened, is that I had a real rupture in my relationship with the church. And the sense that I had was that this whole community who loved me up until this point, as soon as I spoke up, as soon as I spoke out, as soon as I, went to bat against this leadership team, it felt like everyone kind of cast me out and turned their back on me. And I felt abandoned, I felt alone, I felt it was a really rough time for me to be feeling those things. And so the way that I made peace with it is through the brain's power of cognitive dissonance, as I just said, okay, all of that is gone. Like, I'm not Christian, I'm not spiritual, I'm not religious, I'm not any of those things, and I pushed those things away. And that worked for a while. But there was always this little like nibble back, like, and part of that's like, what are the big questions, right? Like, what's the purpose of life? Why are we here? What's the meaning of all of this? Like, and then also looking at like the beauty in the world, like the beauty of a flower and the symmetry and like all of this. Like, why is it this way, this magical? It feels like there's something more than what we, at least cognitively, have understood through science up until now. And so these sorts of things were always there, kind of just tugging at me, but I didn't know what to do with them. So I just pushed them aside. And I think as a person, but then specifically as a woman, we're always taught to turn away from those little tugs at our soul. Like, we're always taught, like, the specific way that you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to be as a daughter and a wife and a mother and an employee, and just as like a citizen. You're supposed to be nice, you're supposed to be happy, you're supposed to be look polished and talk a certain way, and there's so many pressures, right, about how we look and how we are and who we be in this world, that we are constantly having to choose between doing this thing that we're told is how we're going to be accepted, which is our core, what we want most of all, right? And what our soul is telling us that who we really are, what we really want to say, how we really want to be in the world. And that dynamic is really uncomfortable. And so for a lot of us, it's easier to just try to shut down that soul piece. And that's what I did, right? I just shut down like everything about like those little nibbles that felt uncomfortable. And I just said, all right, well, I'm just going to be who I think I'm supposed to be in this world. And I lived that way for a long time. And then I, got pregnant. During my first pregnancy, I felt so compelled towards spirituality. And I read some poetry by Mary Oliver about nature and the world, and that felt like that helped. And then once my daughter was born, I just shut that stuff back up, and my life was, good enough, right? I had a good enough fulfilling job. I had a good enough marriage. I had a good enough home. I had a good enough life, and also this sense of like, I should be grateful, right? I should be grateful. I have so much. I shouldn't want more. And I think that's another really tricky part that we get into as women, like, because we are grateful. We're so grateful for all of the things. But us wanting more, like that is also our soul speaking to us and saying there's more for you out there. There's more of this world that this world wants of you and wants for you. So listen, come out of your shell, allow what your longings are to be spoken into truth. And that is absolutely something that brings me such joy when I'm working with my clients, right? When we can get to those truths that are there and they say them, just saying them, just honoring them, just letting them out, everything else starts to shift. So in my story, I have my second baby. Guess what? Same thing happened. I'm just really compelled towards spirituality, and I don't really know what to do with it. But once he's born, he's also a difficult sleeper. Things are really rough. We end up moving across state lines so that I'm able to be with him and get more support from my parents, and my husband's able to be more available, like all the things. In that transition, I started expanding my career lens, right? And so I've been a therapist for a long time, and I've done coaching with my therapy clients, but I started to look into coaching professionally, and it was like a whirlwind of me being exposed to different spiritual teachers, and that language just hitting and resonating, and me just feeling like, fuck it, like this is my one life. Like I am gonna make it happen. I am gonna just see, worst case scenario, I read some, spiritual stuff, and I start to pray, and I, feel like, all right, this didn't work. But that didn't happen. What actually happened is that I started to feel more connected to myself. I started to feel like I'd always been told that I was supposed to surrender, but I never knew how, right? Because I was doing so much work, right? Trying to maintain this external presentation of myself, right? That was like meeting all of society's expectations. So I'm like working. And people are like, oh, you need to relax, surrender. And I'm like, well, who the fuck am I surrendering to? Right? Who am I like, who's going to catch me? Like those trust falls, right? Like who's catching me? And so once I started just trusting that, all right, what I do know is that we are all energetic beings. I do know that we are all connected. I do know that there is a soul in me, that there's a soul in my dog, that there is, these spirits and these energies that are happening in the world. So what if this was all connected? And what if we were all supported? How would that feel? And it feels pretty good. So that was the start of my journey. And I'm curious, for those of you watching, let me know either through here in the messages, or directly through Messenger, where are you on that journey? Like, is that something that has come up for you? Is that something that has spoken to you? You know, what's going on with you in your spirit? Is there healing that needs to happen there? Because I believe that each of us are innately wired to we have wisdom in us, right? We have wisdom and knowing and knowledge in us. And I want to make a confession, that I haven't shared this stuff in this group as directly because I've been afraid, right? And I've been afraid of your judgment of me. I've been afraid of showing up as a spiritual person for a long time, like ever since I left the church, and then I was able to affiliate, like, oh, I'm agnostic, or even for a period, like, oh, I think I'm atheist, I was able to like have this other identity that felt safer, right? This is super vulnerable. This is super open and like unclear because it's not backed in science. And so I haven't shown up in this way in this group because I have been afraid of not wanting to upset people. And that, I know that is my people pleaser stuff, it's my life work, right? I am like a people pleaser by training, or maybe by nature too. And I constantly have to be aware of that, right? Like when that pulls me in and tells me, am I saying the thing because I want to say the thing, or am I saying the thing because I feel like it's the thing I'm supposed to say? So anyway, I'm going to leave you here today, but I'm sending you love. I will come live next week again to talk about something else nice and juicy. So if there's something you want to hear about, shoot me a message, let me know. In the meantime, always reach out. I offer every woman a free session with me to chat one time about what's going on in your life, get some clarity about what's going on for you, and what the blocks are for you living your life on your terms, letting all of those nibbles, those tugs at your soul, be spoken into truth. And if we seem like we're a good fit to work together, then I'll tell you what it's like to work with me. And if we don't, then we'll just go on our way, and I believe enriched from the experience. So sending you love, hoping to hear from you. Bye.